Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, name is Abitronistim. IDSF is a leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security to defend Israel. It's a great privilege to be joined today by the chairman and founder of IDSF, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. General, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure, Moshe. Thank you.
We did share in our mailings last week some of your sentiments on the ceasefire, but our viewers have not heard you speak live about your thoughts on the ceasefire in Lebanon, and of course, the latest in terms of how that ceasefire is playing out. So if you could start with that, it would be fantastic.
Okay. So before I dive into the ceasefire, I want to put things in context. At the beginning of the war, on the 7th of October, Israel set in Gaza a very clear goal for saying we are going to eradicate Hamas as a governmental and military entity. And when I was asked already on the 7th of October, what is going to happen, where this is going, I said, okay, it's clear. We're going to conquer all of Gaza, all of it. And I must say, many people were surprised when I said that. For people on the 7th of October, it was inconceivable, even looking at the horrors that we saw there. But it's very simple. From a military point of view, if you want to eradicate an organization, you need boots on the ground. You need to conquer the whole area in order to do so. And then I was asked about Lebanon from the very beginning. And I said, in Lebanon, we ourselves, we will not be able to eradicate completely Hezbollah. Why? First, we would need to conquer all of Lebanon. It was clear from day one, we're not going to conquer all of Lebanon. And even if we would, Hezbollah could have withdrawn into Syria and keep thousands of terrorists in Syria, not in Lebanon. And then what we were supposed to do, also go to Syria. So it was obvious that the goals of war in Lebanon will be different. And indeed, the goal of war that the government said, there is one goal for the North, bringing back the citizens safely to their homes. Now, what does it mean the way Israel looks at Hezbollah? Israel said, okay, we're not going to conquer all of Lebanon, but we are going to hit Hezbollah dramatically, bring this organization on its knees. And I think the way Israel did it is amazing, really eliminating all their leadership, all the commanders there on the tactical level, degrading them like 80%, hitting many capabilities, mostly the strategic ones. Hezbollah is no longer a strategic threat to Israel. Having said that, unlike 2006, it was clear that overall, whether it's Gaza, Lebanon, anywhere else, Israel cannot afford to have terror armies on its borders. So it was very clear that in order to bring safely our citizens back home, we need to do two things. We need to completely push Hezbollah out of South Lebanon. They cannot be anywhere near. And also to be able to enforce the reality where they cannot rebuild themselves again. And we need to do it. We cannot trust France. We cannot trust any international forces. We can certainly not trust the Lebanese or the Lebanese army. And when I spoke to one of the generals in the army last week, he said very clearly, Amir, for us, anything the international community or the Lebanese army will do, it's a bonus. We're not counting on it at all. We are going to enforce this. And indeed, the moment this 60 days ceasefire was signed, and I want to make it clear, it's a 60 days ceasefire. It's not a permanent agreement. It was clear that Israel is going to enforce it. And from day one, Israel started enforcing it. Every day, the IDF is attacking in different places in Lebanon, shooting with the Air Force, in many places with the ground forces. Any attempt of Hezbollah to do anything that will help them rebuild themselves is answered by an Israeli attack. So Lebanon is becoming Syria. One of the reasons that in this 7-front war, the one front that almost we haven't heard about at all, it's not Yemen, it's not Lebanon, it's not Gaza or Iran, it's Syria. Why? Because the Syrians, we have been hitting them for years, all the time, every week, not enabling any buildup of force, and we created a reality that is much safer for Israel. It's not perfect, but it's much better. So did Israel give up on the idea of destroying Hezbollah? No. But the campaign in Lebanon, we created the terms for the international community in Lebanon to dismantle them. We cannot control at the moment if they will actually do that or not, according to Resolution 1559. But when we talk about Lebanon, even when we talk about Gaza, we need to look at the overall strategy. And the overall strategy is cutting the head of the snake. And the head of the snake is Iran. So we heard the Prime Minister, when he addressed this ceasefire, one important thing he said, we are shifting the center of gravity from Lebanon to Iran. You all remember that there was a certain point in time when we said to the government and also here in these briefings, we need to shift the center of gravity from Gaza to the north. And we did. We shifted the center of gravity from Gaza to the north and hit Hezbollah in maybe one of the most amazing ways possible. Now we're shifting the center of gravity from Gaza to Iran in order to bring down this Shia axis completely. And as Israel is preparing for that, other things that are happening within this ceasefire is that in this agreement also the US renewed shipment of capabilities to Israel, munitions, which we need. Also, we have assurance that the US will defend us in the National Security Council, which is very, very important. So, and we also, basically the ground forces have time to rest and reorganize. We understand that we need to move many, many units to Gaza to finish the job and release our hostages. So there are many reasons why this ceasefire is working out very well for us. And we haven't said to the citizens of the North, go back home. Israel is waiting to see how this is working out. Any moment we can change it. As far as the army is concerned, they can go back to war tomorrow morning. I mean, if they see that things are not working, Israel will go back fighting. And I think that the understanding that this might happen and that Israel is resolute is creating deterrence in Lebanon and with Hezbollah. They know that at any moment we'll be willing to go back to war. And the leadership of Hezbollah, of course, is afraid, and they know that we'll attack them and kill them as we killed all the leadership. So this is creating deterrence. Now, as this thing is evolving, the radical Sunnis in Syria have seen that Hezbollah is very, very weak. Iran is getting weaker. And they decided to seize the moment and launch a big attack in North Syria, in Haleb, backed up by the Turks. And they're gaining ground very, very fast, moving forward from north to south, and really surprising the Syrian regime. And this is a very strong sign that the Shia axis of Iran is starting to get weaker and weaker, and we need to bring the fall of this axis. The overall, the Middle East is moving along 3 different axes. One is the Iranian axis, the Shia axis, which is very radical. We see all of it. The Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Hamas. This is the Shia axis. The other axis is also very problematic and very challenging, is the radical Sunni axis, led by the Turks and Qatar. This axis includes ISIS, includes Jabhat al-Nusra, includes Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, all these forces that after the withdrawal from Afghanistan started recuperating and getting stronger. And now we see how they are operating in Syria. And then there is the Sunni moderate axis, which basically this is the axis we need to join together with the West in order to stabilize the Middle East. So for us at the moment, it might work well to see the radical Sunni axis gaining strength and fighting Iran and its proxies. But it's obvious that at a certain point in time, this might pose also a danger to us. So the overall strategy is cutting the head of the snake, bringing down the Iranian axis, but then signing regional and global peace agreements, strengthening the moderate Sunni forces, and bringing as many allies as possible to the Sunni side. How is this radical Sunni attack in Syria going to impact Lebanon? It's going to be interesting to see, because as they are moving north to south, they might cut the ability of Iran to try and move capabilities to Hezbollah in Lebanon. This might also give strength to other elements in Lebanon to fight Hezbollah as they are fighting in Syria. So things are happening, and pieces are moving fast. And Israel basically is moving towards two main missions now. One is preparing for Iran and really getting the administration, the Trump administration on board to deal militarily with Iran. At the same time, we understand that this is the moment to release our hostages and to win in Gaza. Hamas seems to make signs that they would agree to a deal. Why is this happening? They see that basically Israel achieved something very important, disconnected the connection between Lebanon and Hamas. Hamas is all alone. They also know that in the coming weeks and months, more and more brigades that operated in Lebanon are going to be moved to Gaza, and the Israeli attack on them, or what's left of them, Hamas is pretty much in a very bad shape, is going to enhance dramatically. We fought in Lebanon now with 14 brigades. It's enough that we send 6, 7 brigades more to Gaza to really push very fast and strong the collapse of Hamas, and they know that. And they also know that in 2 months there will be the Trump administration, and then it will be much harder for them to get any deal that will maybe be a bit beneficial for them. So they're really trying to cut a deal now, and we might see, hopefully, hostages released in the coming months or 2. But as Israel is discussing this, and these discussions are led more by Egypt, not Qatar, the pressure on Hamas will continue and will grow as more and more units will move south and enhance the pressure on Hamas. This week, we had a new general joining IDSF. Is a general from the Mossad, and he conducted the talks in Qatar and Egypt to release the hostages until August, before he retired or went to vacation before retirement. It was very, very interesting to hear what he had to say, but I would say that the overall message he conveyed to me is that everything that's said on the media, that Israel is not really dealing with it, they're not carrying, the government is not doing enough. He said it's all not true. Both the security forces and the government are really, really trying very, very hard to find a solution to release the hostages. Hamas is the one that throughout this last, I would say, half a year, completely was against any deal. And now things are changing. Strategic situation overall is changing and opportunities are popping. And this is the moment that I'm really hoping to see our hostages coming back. Moshe.
Thank you, General, for sharing all of that. And thank you to the viewers and supporters who are sending in so many questions. General, a lot of people are wondering right now the accusations being presented in the media that the U.S. government is making claims that Israel is violating the ceasefire. Are you able to elaborate a little bit on the terms of the ceasefire? Meaning you've just suggested there's a 60-day process. So what would be an accusation? How would Israel be in violation currently if there's still obviously troops on the ground?
So basically, Israel, when it sees a violation, it reacts. They want Israel to go through an elaborate mechanism, talking to the French, to the Americans, and we have to differ between dangers that are immediate. And Israel says, in this case, we attack, and things that have to do with dismantling some places or doing things that can be elaborated through this mechanism that was created. It might be a kind of disagreement about really how the sides understand the agreement. But I would encourage both the American administration and the French to really, really focus on Hezbollah, not on Israel. Israel has a responsibility to defend its citizens, and Hezbollah needs to be dismantled, and I encourage everybody to focus on that.
For sure. And you're saying that there were 14 divisions in Lebanon, brigades, I'm sorry, 14 brigades in Lebanon that are now transitioning back to Gaza. After this 60-day period, what do you see as the IDF presence in Lebanon?
So it's a big question. I'm not sure there will be a presence. And I think that one of the weaknesses of this ceasefire, there is no dead zone that was defined. I think that one of the things that really bother the citizens of the North and people who are looking at this ceasefire is that we didn't demand in a clear way that there will be like 2-3 kilometers that nobody can go back to. Because we know that all the towns along the border were terror towns, completely. All the houses were connected to terror activities. This is why we destroyed all of them. And Israel has had the right to demand and say, we are not willing to have anybody going back to these places anymore, as long as Hezbollah exists. I mean, if Hezbollah is dismantled, okay, new era, new reality. But as long as they don't dismantle Hezbollah, I think it's reasonable for Israel to say, in this reality, we're not willing to have these towns rebuilt. And this is not something that we have in the agreement. So the question is, at the moment, by the way, the IDF is not letting people go back to these towns. How long is this going to continue? We don't know, because it's not clear, because it's not in the agreement. So we might find two realities. One, that after 60 days, the IDF will completely withdraw, and we let Lebanese citizens, most of them Shia, some of them connected to Hezbollah, to go back and rebuild these towns and monitor what they're doing there. Or might be that once the Trump administration steps into office, there will be new requirements and a change in the permanent agreement, not the 60-day ceasefire. So feels to me like Israel is keeping things open, and according to what will happen in the coming 60 days, then we'll know where this is going. I think really there is a big challenge to reassure the Israeli citizens that reality has completely changed. People are really afraid that the reality of 2006 will be back, that that we'll see Hezbollah rebuilding itself, that will rely again on international forces like UNIFIL or Lebanese army, and everything that we fought for was for nothing. And I can really understand people that feel like that, but I feel that this is not where we are. I talking to the leadership of the army, I see them very resolute to make sure that Hezbollah won't be able to rebuild itself. Looking at the overall strategy that is attacking Iran and what we're seeing now in Syria, and these changes, I don't think that the reality of 2006 and the next 18 years afterwards will be back. I think we are going to a completely different reality, which really is pushing towards bringing down the Shia axis. But to gain the really understanding of the Israeli society that this is what's happening, only time will really reassure or not reassure, depending on what happens, the citizens about what is going to be.
So we have a 60-day ceasefire, and then, as you said, time will tell. So when do you anticipate these tens of thousands of Israeli residents getting the confidence to return to their homes? I mean, it feels like it's many, many months away at this point.
I'm not sure. Can be weeks. Can be. I mean, I can say that many citizens started visiting their homes. We see more and more people arriving to their houses. They haven't been at home for a year or more. And every day that there is no shooting from Lebanon is another day that the people are feeling maybe more reassured. And I think that as the IDF is imposing this ceasefire, really the big next step in the north is the rebuilding of the communities. It's a very important mission for the government. Needs to put a lot of effort and a lot of money in really rebuilding these beautiful communities of the north, investing in the north, investing in industries, in railways, in many ways to really strengthen the north. Yesterday, by the way, the leadership of IDSF, we met with the Minister of Construction of Building, and we discussed selling apartments to with reservists, giving them apartments for a low price in the north and in the Negev. So one of the ways to really bring the young generation to the north and to the south is offering them really good deals, an apartment they can buy for 30-40% off the price, and giving them lands for 90% discount. And this is how we are going to compensate also our reservists and gain two things: show the reservists how much we care and appreciate what they've done in the last year, but also bring more and more Jews to the Galil and the Negev.
General, I want to ask you two more questions, one about the Houthis and one about Syria. But before we get to that, I want to just note to all of our wonderful viewers and supporters who are tuning into this briefing that tomorrow, if you live in the US, is what they call Giving Tuesday. And therefore, if you're considering a charitable donation, you're trying to think where your funds can have the most impact, we would encourage you to consider a gift to IDSF. IDSF is working very hard throughout this war and before the war, really protecting lives of Israelis through all of our policy initiatives, building global partnerships around the world to fight anti-Semitism, stand strong with Israel, and of course, investing in our future here in Israel by educating, inspiring the next generation of leaders. So we are doing so much. We rely on support from generous donors around the world. And if our cause speaks to you, I encourage you, make a donation. You can do it today. You don't even have to wait tomorrow for Giving Tuesday. Okay, General, quick question about the Houthis. Just yesterday, we all ran to our bomb shelters. It was so out of the blue. We ran to our bomb shelters because there was a missile or something coming in from Yemen. How is Israel right now viewing the threat of the Houthis?
So obviously, Iran, as it's losing its assets near Israel, Hamas and Hezbollah is trying to mobilize its other militias. In Syria, we see it's hard because they're fighting the Sunnis now, they're very busy, but they have the militias in Iraq and in Yemen. So I would assume that Israel will probably retaliate and attack, but really these are targets that are very far away, and this is the expectation Israel has from the US to really lead in a serious attack on the Houthis, on Iran. And I think that with the coming administration, I'm hopeful that we'll really, really dismantle this axis, including the militias in Iraq and in Yemen, and of course, nuclear sites and the military sites, possibly other targets in Iran.
Okay, final question. You mentioned that very helpful breakdown of the radical Sunni world, the moderate Sunni world, and then the Shia world. Are you concerned at all that if radical Sunnis are overtaking Syria, they will empower radical Sunnis to attack Israel, most namely Hamas, that somehow this will give a second strength to Hamas, looking at what's happening in Syria and building out the power to motivate their population to fight once more?
So since 2011, we had instances where the whole border in the Golan Heights was occupied by Sunni radical elements. And we managed to deal with this because this guy, there are many, many different groups. They're not very organized, they're not very sophisticated. It's not the Iranian axis that is very, very sophisticated and technological and using very advanced capabilities. So I would say overall, it's less of a threat, but as I said, we need to build an alliance and we'll have to deal also with this challenge. And there is a discussion today in Israel whether bringing down the Syrian regime, Assad, will be a good thing or a bad thing. Whether chaos in Syria is good or bad. And I really don't think there is a good answer to that. I mean, it's hard to say because the Assad regime has worked very closely with Iran and enabled the build-up of Hezbollah and fought with Hezbollah. And maybe bringing down Hezbollah, we need Assad to fall. And on the other hand, as you said, Moshe, having Syria in the hands of radical Sunni elements like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Jabhat Nusra, Muslim Brotherhood, and so on, of course, it's problematic. And it also connects to Turkey, because Turkey is trying to push its influence into Syria. And don't think we want the Turks on our border. We don't have a good experience with Erdogan. And so there are many considerations here. And Israel needs to be very, very alert and follow closely what is going on. But one thing is sure, any Iranian attempt, which is happening as we speak, to send reinforcements and bring more forces into Syria should be met with an Israeli attack. So in a way, Israel is going to help the Sunni elements at the moment, because at the moment we're focused on bringing down the Shia axis. This is our top priority, and cutting the ability to bring munitions to Hezbollah. This is the top priority at the moment.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing all of this to all of our viewers, all of our supporters. Thank you to everyone for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.